When people come to my LinkedIn profile, the first thing they see is my TED Talk. And the message that I receive shortly afterwards is, hey, how did you deliver that TED Talk? How did you become a TEDx speaker? So I figured finally I'd make the video and let you know how I became a TEDx speaker and how you can too. Let's go. Now, the first thing to know is there's a difference between being a TED speaker and a TEDx speaker. Those are two different types of events. TED tends to be reserved for more of the high caliber celebrity status people, whereas TEDx tends to be a smaller local event that maybe a city hosts, a school hosts, a university hosts. And the idea is to give independent voices a chance to share their message with the world. So most people who are not celebrity status, you'll see them delivering a TEDx talk and not a TED talk. There is a difference between the two. It's also important to note that no two TEDx events are the same. They're organized by different people, they have different themes, they have different criterias, and it's not uniform. Some events are much bigger, they're held in a big venue, others are much smaller. So depending on which one you apply to, the threshold to get in, the difficulty to get in might be very different. So one trick here is if you are looking to get placement in a TED Talk, you have to find an event that is on a more small scale, because usually they tend to have lesser competition, lesser applications, and you're more likely to get a slot. Some other things to consider are people do get invites into TEDx talks. So for example, if a university is hosting their own TED Talk, like this one, they might reach out to their students, they might reach out to some of their own professors and say, hey, you'd be a great fit for this, you should apply, or we'd love to save you a slot for this, so they get a little bit of a head start. I'm going to share more about how you can find these local TEDx events later in this video. I landed my TED Talk is my university, Thompson Rivers University, was hosting their own local TEDx event. So I decided to apply. Once I applied, there's a pretty lengthy application process where you have to talk about what your story is, what your credentials are, why anyone would listen to this story. And some places, depending on where you apply, they also want to make sure that you have some sort of influence. So if you do a TED Talk, that you can then share with other people and they will then come and watch it, or that you can sell tickets to the event of the TED Talk. So I've actually seen a lot of applications that are based off of how popular you are. If we give you a slot, can you bring a lot of people to watch? So that tends to be a criteria as well. Once I saw the application, I filled out the application, I sent it in, and then the committee decided to call me in for an interview. They have a few interview series where they ask you about what your idea is, why you want to share it, and they also want to assess, is this person a good speaker? Now that isn't a huge criteria I've seen. I've seen a lot of people who aren't professional speakers, but they have an amazing story, and they get a slot there as well. So you don't have to be a fantastic public speaker. A lot of TEDx conferences also arrange for training for you, that once you have a message, they train you how to deliver that message. So I went through the interviews, I shared my story, and I could tell the look on the panel, they were very intrigued by the story I had to share. And shortly after, a week later, I got the message that, hey, congratulations, you have been chosen to be one of the TEDx speakers on the day itself. And I can tell you, I was over the moon, because it's been an absolute dream of mine to share my message on a TEDx stage. What then happens is you submit a draft of your speech, and then you have to rehearse it over and over and over again. They had arranged a public speaking coach, and every single week we met, we trained our speech, we polished it up a little bit. It was optional, you don't have to do it, but again, some TEDx events require you to come, they require you to submit the written material of what you're going to say, just to make sure the language fits, it's politically correct, whatever it might be. And I will say there is some bias in this process too, depending on the committee. If they don't like your message, they don't want to push it forward, or they don't think it's relevant to their theme, your application might get accepted or rejected based on that. Eventually, after a lot of training, after a lot of rehearsal, the day finally came. I went and I delivered my TEDx talk. I shared the message with the world. I feel like everybody enjoyed it. There were videographers on the scene itself, and then they were videoing the whole thing. It took about a month or 2 months for the video to get edited and actually posted on the official TEDx channel. And that's when I officially became a TEDx speaker. Now, what has becoming a TEDx speaker done for me? A lot of people, when they see my resume and they see TEDx speaker, they feel that I'm a good public speaker. When they go watch my video, they can see how I communicate. So when I'm applying for jobs, when clients want to learn from me about public speaking, they can see almost like a portfolio via my TED Talk. They can see how I speak. So it's one of those credentials that everyone likes to have under their belt, especially if they're sharing a message that they're truly passionate about. Now let's talk about how you can land a TED Talk. One of the most important things I'd share with you is don't go into it thinking, how can I become a TEDx speaker? Instead, think about what is a message that I can share with the world that the world needs to hear, that they will benefit from. This is why, because when I was delivering my TEDx speech, a lot of students were coming up to me and said, hey, I want to become a TEDx speaker. What should I talk about? Hey, what should I talk about that'll land me the role? So it wasn't so much that they wanted a message to be shared, they just wanted the credential of becoming a TEDx speaker, and therefore their message wasn't very powerful. And they would go and they would interview and they wouldn't get selected because it would sound like they just want to be on stage. Genuinely think about this. I'm going to be speaking on a TEDx stage. I'm going to be delivering this message to the entire world. What is that message that I want to deliver? The more powerful your message, the more impact it has on other people, the more likely you are to get chosen. Now, in order to find TEDx events, I would go to the official TEDx website and look up the location. They have an entire list of TEDx events happening, the dates, where they're happening, who's organizing it, and even has email addresses that you can reach out to these people. So what I would recommend you to do is look at all these TEDx events in your area, reach out to them and ask them what the criteria is. Ask them for an application form. Fill out the application form, make sure it's really, really strong, and a certain percentage of them will accept you, and you might be called for an interview. If on the application you can show you're someone who has influence, or someone who can get people to buy tickets, if you are someone who will get a lot of views, drive a lot of views, that will really push them to give you a slot on the TEDx stage. And the last thing I want to mention is don't wing it. Once you land your TED Talk, do practice, do write it down, do rehearse it. I remember I was doing my master's degree at the time when I was doing my TEDx preparation, and every single day I was practicing my speech maybe twice. So I would run the entire 15 minutes twice a day, every day, and by the time I delivered my TED Talk, I had known it by heart. I knew every single beat. So if you're going to be representing yourself, if you're going to be sharing your message, you want to make sure it comes across as powerful and as polished as possible. I know a lot of people are afraid of public speaking, so don't be afraid of practicing ahead of time. And if you do want help with your public speaking, if you do want help with your social skills, you can find a link in the description to get me to help you out with that. Once you practice and you deliver your TED Talk, that's it. You've shared your message, and then over time, a month or two later, your TEDx talk will finally go online, and then you can post the link everywhere, send it to all your friends, and get a lot of views on it, and hopefully share the impact with other people. I hope this video helped you out in becoming a TEDx speaker. I hope it gave you some starting points of where you can look to get started. I'm going to be making a lot more videos about public speaking, social skills, so you can become the most confident version of yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.